We're here in Rome and I'm joined by Ukrainian Ambassador to the Holy See, Andrii Yurash. Thank you so much for being with us in these days where there's a very sad anniversary. It's 1 year of war on European soil, 1 year since the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. What's the situation like in these days back home?
First of all, thank you for inviting me today. For me, it's very important to have this possibility to express our feelings, exactly to express what you are asking for. Surely, it's a very sad moment when all Ukrainians are thinking about the reasons, contemporary realities and consequences. So we are trying to understand why it's happened for almost 1 year on this terrible phase of war, and in fact what is going the real war for 8 years. And we're realizing that this situation, what we experiencing right now, that is a consequence of very big preconditions, what we've had in connection with our history, in our desire to be a member of European family. That's the reason. But surely right now we are paying too much price for that. We are paying something which is not just material. A lot of cities, houses, everything are destroyed in UK. But the most terrible things what we now can observe in absolutely unpredictable way, that is a losing of lives of our people. That is something which we couldn't even imagine before. Like you said in your first question, Europe, the continent with a huge cultural tradition, with a huge heritage in any dimensions, and now we have repeated of the all horrors of absolutely classical war.
The horrors of war, as you mentioned. I know that you also organized a conference here in Rome addressing the situation in Ukraine, but there was also the mention of a real crime, a war crime, a crime to humanity, the abduction of children. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, it was a presentation. It was done by 7 members of Ukrainian Parliament. They just recently visited Rome and had an opportunity to speak with representatives of the diplomatic corps accredited to the Holy See. And they presented the most reliable figures about the situation in general and especially about the children. And I know even me, it was some subject of some absolutely unexpected things which I wouldn't able to believe. I mean the quantity of children that were stolen in different ways from the Ukrainian territory. 760 or 80,000 children.
Close to 800,000 children were
yes,
abducted.
absolutely. And I didn't believe myself. And when I heard this figure from my colleagues from Ukraine, from the parliament, I checked very closely different sources. And I found, and my colleagues from the embassy found, even according to the Russian sources, 685,000 for sure, but it's not complete number. We understand that during the war it's very hard to collect and to count each person. But so I'm absolutely right now sure that this figure is very close to the reality, terrible reality.
And do we know what has happened to these children?
Different situations. Some of them, I really hope that the majority of them are with parents, and I think it's a better, with mom or somebody from the family. It's the best situation. But dozens, thousands of children now are collected in special camps for re-educating, for implementing in their mentality some absolutely unrealistic, completely pro-Russian schemes of ideology, of perceptions of the world. What we call now, and everybody understand, the realities of the Russian propaganda, which is, you know, it's something really terrible. And when I realized that, I started to trying to obtain at least the most important aspect of this propaganda. And I checked several times some Russian media, some Russian special channels, and I found that what are they expressing, what they are trying to present for their own citizens, what they are trying to convert into open information around the world through different ways of spreading the information. It's absolutely amazingly something unrealistic, which is completely out of reality of the real situation in any dimensions. On the front, about the war, about the reasons of the war, about position of Ukraine, and also absolutely unrealistic perception about everything, how it is accepting on the Western side, how democratic Western societies responding for this huge and terrible challenge from the Russian side. And I'm afraid that children which will receive this amount of unrealistic, completely false information will be in some period of time a real product of this Russian ideological mechanisms and machines. So we really want to return all them as quick as possible to Ukrainian territory.
And you're asking also for help of the international community, but you're here the ambassador to the Holy See. How do you see the role of the Vatican in this conflict?
I would like to combine two aspects of your question. Surely we are asking everybody, all countries, all international organizations that could be involved into this process, surely. And at the same time, we are asking, and me personally as a representative of Ukraine to the Holy See, we are asking first of all the Holy See to be as active as possible in this dimension as well. We are asking the Holy See to pay much more attention to this question because it's a terrible problem for Ukraine. Surely we are thinking about the peace. Holy See is speaking, and by the way, yesterday the Holy Father was speaking also about the peace as a most desirable task, goal of the Holy See and everybody. But if we want to obtain peace, we have to think about the preconditions, how we can read that. And peace is not just as something purely peace. Peace as the condition for justice, because even these children need to have justice. The families from which some children, sons or daughters will be stolen and were brought to Russia, they also need to have this justice. And justice is also a possibility for everybody from Ukrainian side who lost their homes, who lost their families, to feel that the justice is coming to each person, to each family. And the justice is presupposed returning the territory. Now we have millions of people spread around Europe, in Italy, in Austria, in Poland, first of all, in many other countries. And we want to take all these people back. But how they will come to their homes if their home destroyed? But we can rebuild, we can reconstruct. But what is more difficult, what is more terrible, if the territories on which they used to have homes or apartments now are occupied. So we need to liberate territories, to bring people back, to reinstall justice, and that will mean peace.
And how realistically is it that the Ukraine will see peace soon?
I think everything is possible, and I think I am always communicating with the representative of the church. For all of them, irrational aspects, irrational perception of realities are very important, and I was not able to believe in war even in 2 days before the war. I said, no, it's impossible. From any rational point, it's something incredibly unrealistic, but it's happened. And in this way, I am always trying to respond for the challenge of possibly installing the peace. I believe that in some way, we cannot say right now exactly, but in some way, it will come soon. I really hope, and a lot of people are praying for that, and it can happen something that we can't imagine at this moment when I'm talking to you, or maybe I just don't know today about this circumstances, preconditions, about realities in some dimension, but I think it will be done soon, and we will receive this possibility to return back our territories. Because, for example, one example, last September, when Ukraine returned absolute majority of one very important for us region, Kharkiv region. Kharkiv, that is a former capital of Ukraine, 100 years ago, very close to the Russian border. Kharkiv wasn't, thanks God, occupied, but the majority of this region was occupied. And in several days, Ukrainian army was able to liberate and to return back to our statehood, to our people, and they are returning very actively in this area. The same, I believe, will happen soon with other Ukrainian territories. And surely we will have one another very important component and aspect of the future, our victory. I mean, really essential, huge help from many countries. From the side of Italy, United States, and many other European Union, Poland, Great Britain, surely I can't mention right now all these countries, but we are receiving a lot of practical help by arms, by any materials, and in different other ways. So this help, it's a reality which help all Ukrainian to stay much stronger, to understand that we are not alone, we are not just ourselves with this terrible battle with evil and with the side of which represent horror and terrorists in the contemporary world. We are together, and just recently we had this unique visit, for example, Prime Minister Meloni in Kyiv. After that, we had a visit of the American president to Kyiv. So it's a gesture that I think is very hard to re-estimate even.
Anything that you would wish from the side of the Holy See that still could be done to truly bring about peace?
Surely, the Holy See is doing a lot. I'm sure about that. And it is not just a phrase, it's not just declaration. I know they're trying to find ways of communication with different partners, with different institutions and organizations around the world. But also, we are trying to convinced that the Holy See could also participate very actively and very practically in some concrete realities and situations related to the war, and we are thinking even further to renovation the economy of the country. I mean, first of all, we want that the Holy See could support the peaceful formula of President Zelensky. It's very well-known document. It has 10 points, And I realized not all these points can be acceptable for each country, but each country can participate in realization one of these points. And I already have several communications with the highest representatives of the Holy See that at least 3 points can be very concretely correlated with the program, with the strategy, with the ideology of the Holy See. I mean, for example, installing justice. We are speaking about justice, and church, any church, and especially the Holy See, the Catholic Church, is always trying to emphasize justice as a most important value in spiritual area. Secondly, it's bringing back people that were captured, kidnapped from Ukraine, and it is already realizing in some way, and the Holy See participating in some communication on that side. And thirdly, it also would be important stating the status of the end of war. Because, you know, when we are speaking about peace, about the end of the war, about the victory, it's important concepts, important phenomena. But at the same time, somebody has to, have to say, yes, we already on that point when, for example, the concept of peace is already reached. And the authority, moral authority, spiritual authority of the Holy See can realize for everybody, for our side, for any other side, that it is already reached some point. And I think this also aspect can be obtained with the practical involvement of the Holy See. As well, we are encouraging the Holy See to participate in some program, in some initiatives related to rebuilding some institutions, some spheres of Ukraine. In that area, this is mostly devastated by the war. Surely, I am not speaking about, for example, some big plans or military infrastructure. We are speaking about educational system, about churches. More than 400 churches even were destroyed during the war. And if we can think and if we could discuss any possibility for the Holy See to participate in renewing some of them, it will be real help.
And there's surely openness, as we also see that there are also help organizations from the church, also in the Ukraine. But maybe a last personal question. So I know you are, as an ambassador, you're in the business of diplomacy. But do you also pray for peace?
Surely, I every day I'm trying to pray, because peace for me, it's not something abstract. It's a very concrete. For example, my oldest son, which is the youngest member of parliament, but at the same time, any free day, he goes to the front and he became a real soldier, and he's like 95–90% of his time spending in army. So for me, peace is bringing my oldest son back home and bringing peace and quietness in my private family life. So it's very important, and that's why our embassy came to the idea to declare this week as a week of prayer for Ukraine. In Tuesday, we had the first big mass in St. Andrea Church for Ukraine, for the peace, and this prayer was presided by Archbishop Monsignor Paul Richard Gallagher. We will have tomorrow 2 masses as well. For today we will have in St. Sophia Church, and we will finish by big prayer. We are inviting everybody in St. Sophia Cathedral, Basilica Santa Sofia, which is famous Ukrainian spiritual center here in Rome. So prayer now for us, for the embassy and for our mission, is something very, very concrete and very inspiring us here and everybody in Ukraine, because they are ready, they are happy to hear this spiritual support. And for example, when a few days ago our members of parliament, 7 of them, came and visited Archbishop Gallagher, Cardinal Parolin. Yesterday they had a short possibility to meet Holy Father. They came and they had a presentation today in the Parliament and speaking that the Holy See is praying for Ukraine, and they passed already for the Ukrainian society, for Ukrainian Parliament, this message from Rome.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you for being with us. And we will be praying also for Ukraine and for a peaceful resolution to the situation right now. In Rome, EWTN Vatican Bureau, Andreas Thonhauser.